the Skyward sisters, women of the Battle of Britain. This narrative is proudly brought to you by Polly Speaks For You. At Polly Speaks For You, we are committed to empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through innovative text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You is more than just software. It's a tool for self-expression, connecting people with the world in meaningful ways. By blending the richness of history with cutting-edge technology, Polly Speaks For You demonstrates that every voice, whether preserving the past or shaping the future, has the potential to inspire. While we strive to make the story engaging, our primary focus is on storytelling itself. The visuals are secondary. We're showcasing the remarkable capabilities of text-to-speech software that bring these stories to life. The year was 1940, and the skies above Britain were alive with the roar of engines and the crackle of radio transmissions. The Battle of Britain was in full swing, and the Royal Air Force, RAF, was locked in a desperate struggle against the Luftwaffe. Amidst this chaos, there was a quiet, unsung force of women who contributed in ways that would shape the future of the skies. Their story is one of resilience, courage, and an unrelenting desire to do their part during one of the most critical moments in history. They were not the pilots in the cockpits of Spitfires and Hurricanes, but their roles were just as vital, their courage just as fierce, and their legacy just as impactful. Diary entry, September 13th, 1940. The sky is full of noise today. The distant hum of engines and the sharp crack of gunfire make it sound as though the very heavens are fighting. I sit here at my post, my fingers trembling slightly as I adjust the radar controls. I cannot see the battle in the sky, but I can feel it in the pit of my stomach. We are losing so many men, and each wave of planes that takes off could be the last time I see them.
Annabel Hart, WAF radar operator.
Annabelle was one of thousands of women in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, WAF, who played an indispensable role in the Battle of Britain. Their job was not to fly or fight, but to keep the skies clear and the RAF fighters informed. Working in the radar rooms, these women helped pinpoint the positions of incoming German bombers and fighters, guiding British pilots to intercept them before they could wreak havoc on the cities below. Annabelle had always loved the idea of flying, but she had never been able to become a pilot herself. Growing up in a small village, her dreams of soaring through the skies were bound by the limits of her gender. But when the war broke out, Annabelle enlisted in the WAF, hoping her keen mind and steady hands would allow her to contribute in some way. She was assigned to a radar station near the coast, a place where the enemy planes were always on the horizon, and the sound of distant bombers felt like a constant drumbeat in the background. Anecdote: the day I helped save a pilot. It was late in the afternoon on a particularly busy day. Annabelle's fingers were flying across the radar controls, her eyes scanning the blips on the screen. Suddenly, a large formation of German bombers appeared, headed straight for the southern coast. She called out to her superior, "I've got them. They're heading for London." Within moments, the message was relayed to the RAF, and the Spitfires and Hurricanes took to the sky. Annabelle, her heart racing, watched the radar as the RAF fighters closed in on the enemy planes. For a brief moment, her screen went blank. "Where have they gone?" she whispered to herself, praying the fighters wouldn't be lost. Just as suddenly, the blips reappeared, and Annabelle saw that one of the Spitfires had managed to break away from the pack, with two enemy fighters on its tail. Her pulse quickened. She knew the pilot could be in danger. "Call the base," she said urgently. "Tell them he needs backup. He's alone." A few moments later, the fighter was joined by another Spitfire, and together, they forced the German planes to break off. The lone pilot had survived, thanks in part to the quick thinking of Annabelle and the radar team. That night, as the team gathered for a debrief, Annabelle couldn't help but feel a rush of pride. She hadn't flown the plane, but her actions had saved a life that day. And that was enough. Diary entry, October 21st, 1940. The nights seem longer now.
We've lost so many.
Sometimes I hear the engines of the bombers and wonder if my brother is among them. He joined the RAF a month ago, and I pray for him every night. Today I received a letter from him. He's stationed in Scotland, training with the Spitfires. He's so brave, so full of life. I hope that when he takes to the skies, he'll come home.
Annabel Hart, VAF radar operator.
The Women of the Air Transport Auxiliary, ATA. While women like Annabel played a crucial part in the Battle of Britain from the ground, other women took to the skies in a different way. They didn't fight the Luftwaffe, but they did something just as critical, ferrying planes to the front lines. Among the most famous of these women was Mary Ellis, who flew more than 400 different types of aircraft during the war. She was one of the many women who joined the Air Transport Auxiliary, ATA, a civilian organization responsible for delivering aircraft to squadrons across Britain. They didn't get the glory of combat pilots, but they were just as vital to the war effort. Without them, the planes would not have made it to the pilots who needed them. Mary had always dreamed of flying, and when the war broke out, she saw an opportunity to contribute. "I didn't want to sit idly by," she later said. "I wanted to help, and help she did." Anecdote: the day I flew the Spitfire. One of Mary's fondest memories was the first time she flew a Spitfire. It was a small, nimble aircraft that had become one of the symbols of the Battle of Britain. She had been ferrying planes for weeks, but this was the one she had always dreamed of flying. "It was a perfect day," she recalled years later. "The sun was high, the sky was clear, and I felt as though I were born to fly that plane." Mary remembered how the engine roared to life beneath her, and how the controls seemed to respond to her touch, as if the plane were an extension of herself. She wasn't going into battle, but for a moment, she felt like a fighter pilot. As she landed the Spitfire at its destination, the ground crew cheered. They had never seen a woman fly one of these planes before. But Mary simply smiled and walked away, already thinking of the next flight. Diary entry, November 3rd, 1940. Another night, another mission. The sky is so black now, I can hardly see the horizon. The sound of the bombers is deafening. But I hold my ground. I know that every plane that takes off is another chance to push back the enemy. Every fighter that gets airborne is another life saved. I know my place here. I may not be in the cockpit, but I am part of this fight. And I will keep my station until the very end.
Annabel Hart, VAF radar operator.
The aftermath. When the Battle of Britain came to an end, the women who had contributed, whether on the ground or in the skies, were not immediately recognized for their vital roles. Their contributions were essential, but often overlooked. But over time, the tide turned. Years later, Mary Ellis would receive numerous awards for her service, including being made a member of the British Empire, MBE. Annabel, too, would be honored for her dedication to the RAF's success. Both women, and so many others like them, had helped turn the tide of the war. Though they had not fought in the skies, their courage, perseverance, and service were just as important as the men who flew the planes. The battle had been won, and though many didn't know it at the time, women had played a part, silent, steadfast, and strong. And in the years that followed, as the world began to change, those women who had ferried the planes, operated the radar, and kept the home front safe became the pioneers for future generations of women who would soar even higher. Their story is a reminder that not all heroes wear capes, or even fly planes. Some stand at radar stations, others ferry planes to the front, and together, they make the skies safer for those who do battle. In the quiet moments of reflection, as they watched the planes land and the radio transmissions fade into silence, they knew one thing above all: their legacy would echo in the skies for generations to come. If you're enjoying this story, please remember to hit like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue creating content that educates and empowers. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software and to support our dyslexic-friendly initiative, visit www.paulaspeaks4u.co.za. Drop a comment if you want more information. Thank you for watching this video.